Good evening, everyone. My name is Rahul. I'm a Python developer, a corporate trainer, and most importantly, I'm a recovering addict. Today, we'll be talking about functions, what functions are, how do we define functions in Python, how do we call functions, and what benefits do functions gives us. So, if Python code looks repetitive or confusing, functions will save your life. Today I'll explain functions in the simplest way possible. So let's talk about doing a piece of task more than once. So suppose we need to print something a couple of times. So you can see that the task is the same, hello, printing hello world on the console, and I have done it 6 times. So I'm using the same thing 6 times. So this becomes repetitive. In order to solve this, functions came into existence. So how do we define functions in Python? How do we declare or define functions in Python? So in Python, we use the keyword def, followed by the function name, followed by a set of parentheses. Now this parenthesis may be empty or non-empty depending on whether the function takes any input or not. Right now, this function is not taking any input, so we'll leave it empty, followed by a colon. And now let's print this hello world. So this piece of code, def function name, this just declared a function. So when the Python executed this, so it came to know that okay, you are basically creating a function with the function name, and this is the set of statements which you need to execute it. So now let's see what function, how does Python sees our function. So using the function named, and I'm just executing this, it gives you some information. That the information is that this is a function, as you can see here, and this function is declared in a module. So when we talk about module, we'll come to know what modules are. So basically this is a module main, and this is the function name. This is our function name. So obviously our function is stored somewhere in memory, and this memory is basically in the module main. You can also see id of function name. Id is an inbuilt function that returns you the integral memory address. So you can see that this is the memory address, and if we also wrap this within a hex function that changes the integer part into a hexadecimal format, and passing in this id of function name, this will give you the equivalent equivalent hexadecimal memory address. So now you please think of function, that this function is declared in this module main, and this is the function memory address. So as we talked about, that function can accept any argument or it may not accept any argument. So let's define one more function, f1, and this time this function returns hello world. Now let's see what f1 is. Again, f1 is the function. It is in the module under main, and the signature of the function is f1. We can call this function a multiple number of times. So because this function is returning something, so let's store the return value into a variable called result. And now let's try to print the value of the result, and the value of the result is hello world. Now suppose I want, or we want, to execute this function a couple of times. So for i in range 10, print f1. So you can see that it prints the value of the return value of function f1 10 times. It gives us 10 outputs. So it makes our life so much easier. Now let's talk about functions that take up some arguments. So we'll create a function. We will create a function that takes two arguments, both integers, and returns the sum of the arguments. So let's name our function add me, and because this function takes two arguments, so let's give the argument name as num1 and num2. Within this function body, let's just print within function, and then return the sum of num1 added to num2. Again, let's go and see what add underscore me is all about. Add underscore me is a function in the module main, and this is the function signature. Add underscore me num1 and num2. Now let's call the function call. The function call will just use the function name, and right now because the function expects two arguments, I'm not providing any argument here and just executing it, and see the error. It's a type error. This is an exception raised by Python, and it says that add underscore me missing two required positional arguments num1 and num2. So let's give the function some arguments 2, 3. So now it goes within the function definition. It sees the first statement, print statement, so it prints within function and then returns the value of num1 added to num2, and this is the output. Now let's add a few more things to this function, same function. Let me copy and paste to make life a bit easier. let us add a doc string. So a doc string is basically a documentation string that is the first statement within any function. So the documentation string can be enclosed within a set of three. What do we say this? Quotes. So uh, this is a function. This is a function that takes two arguments, num1 and num2, and returns the result of num num1 added to num2. Now let's go and see this add me. So there's perfectly no difference right now which we can see in this function and the function which we created in the previous step. So you can see, the result of add me, you can see the output, and here the result of seeing what add me is. But now if we use the inbuilt help function on and pass in the our function add underscore me, you can see that this gives you a sum help. So this is a help that is useful for the end programmer. So it shows this is a function that takes two arguments, num1 and num2, and it returns the result of num1 added to num2. So this is how we add documentation to a function or to any class or whatever, to make life easier for the end programmer, or for the user who can see what actually add me is. Now let's define this function. Right now we are not aware what type of num1 and num2 is. So if we now I am trying to give annotation to this function add underscore me, and basically to the arguments num1 and num2. Now this specifies that num1, the type of num1 should be integer, and the type of num2 should be an integer, and also it returns an integer. Now let's call this function 2 and 3. Perfectly fine, the function is running, it goes within the function body, prints this statement, and then returns num1 and num2. But why did we, in the second place, why did we even give annotations to num1 and num2? Let's first of all let's see the help of add me. Now here the user will now understand that okay, num1 should be of type integer and num2 should be of type integer, and it returns an integer. So this function returns an integer. So in this way the user will have an understanding, and the user will not make a mistake of typing, of giving a wrong type to num1 and num2. And even though if the user gives a wrong type, I don't think so that this function will complain. Now let's see where these annotations are stored all together. So this our function has a property called doc. Uh, I guess I made a mistake. So let me go and see. So you can see a couple of magic methods or dunder methods. One is annotations, and the other one is dunder doc. So let me use annotations. So whatever annotations we gave to our function, so num1 is of integer, num2 is of integer, and the return is of type integer. So this is very helpful for the programmer. And add me dot underdog. It did not give anything. Did not. I guess it did not store the documentation. Anyway, now let's talk about uh, functions. Now this function can also be called in a different way altogether. So add me, because add me uh, num1 10 and num2 equal to 10 20. So now we are giving a named argument, named positional argument to this function num1 and num2. So add me. Now I can even give num2 equal to 30 and num1 equal to 40. So num2 and num1, this clearly specifies that the value of 30 should go and be stored in the variable or the local variable num2, and the value of 40 that is assigned here to num1 should go and stored in the argument called num1. So let us now create one more function, squared. Okay, this takes in only one argument, and it will return the square of the parliament argument that you passed. Before that, let's give some documentation to this function squared. So now I have not used here annotations. So let us try and see the help of squared, or help on this squared function. So it gives you a help so that the end user clearly can understand that, okay, how this function should be used. If you pass in the value of 2, it will give you the result of 4. Square root of 2 is 4. And if I go and see the gender doc property, you can see that here's the documentation, the doc string, it gets printed here. So to make things easier and clearly, we can squared underscore doc. So it gives you the documentation. So these documentations and annotations are very, very useful for the end user, or for the user who is programming, so that he can understand what type should be passed, and what should be the value, or what should he expect from the function. Now we'll talk about functions with uh, keyword arguments. So let me create a function func, and let's give some argument a comma b comma uh, quarks, and print the value of a equal to format a, the value of b equal to format b, and then uh, print the keyword arguments passed equal to dot format quarks, the unpacked keyword arguments equal to dot format quarks. I'll unpack this. So right now, all the functions which we have created, it is not doing anything. We are just trying to understand how functions are created and how functions are called. So, and in this function, we have also not given any annotations as well as no docstring. So let's see what func is all about. Func is again a function in the module main, and this is the function signature. Now let's call in this func a equal to 10, just 10 comma 20 comma uh, name equal to Rahul and age equal to 47. The unpacked keyword arguments format, okay, I made a mistake here. Okay, so now you can see that the result of this function is the value of a is 10. So this 10, the value of 10 gets collected into this argument, the uh, our argument a. The value of 20 gets stored in the local variable b, and name and age, this is a dictionary, basically it goes and stored in this quarks. This is quark is basically a keyword argument. So the keyword argument passes name and age. So you can see that the result, basically the type is of a dictionary, name and age, and the unpacked arguments, the unpacked keyword arguments equal to name. I don't Okay, so this is my mistake. It should not have been done. Yeah. So, okay. So, if you go and see the help on this function, func, it will not show any help because we have not given any docstring here. So, let's give a docstring here to make it more precise. So, let's give a and of type integer, b of type integer. It The function does not return anything, so the return type is none. The function takes two positional argument and one keyword argument. Now a help on this function will give you the help which we just gave. The function takes two positional arguments and one keyword argument. Now let's call this function passing in the value of a equal to 10, b equal to 20, name equal to arrow, uh, first name equal to arrow, last name equal to John. So now you can see that the value of a equal to 10, value of b equal to 20, and the argument passed is first name, arrow, and last name John. Now, why actually in this place, why are we using this named argument here, a and b, which is not required actually. So let me copy this and paste it once again here. And right now what I'll do is that I'll pass in b equal to 10 and a equal to 20. So you can see that the value of a is 20, right? And the value of b is 10. So no matter how we place our arguments here, but it will eventually get collected in the right place. So we'll continue this in the next lecture. Um, More on functions, more on nested functions, lambda functions. Thank you for joining. And if you're not subscribed, please do subscribe and press the bell icon so that you can get notifications. Thank you so much. Please share this video um, as to so many people's to n number of people, so that people who are into recovery, who are facing recovery, who are living life on life's term, they yes they just get a thumbs up, so that yes, life can also get started even though we have lost everything. Thank you so much.